I have always been fascinated by people, but people in business. So I'm always been fascinated by team dynamics, by group dynamics. And I think business is one of the best places in the world to discover who you are as a human being. I think it is the best place for personal growth, not to mention professional growth. So I've been studying it since I was 18 in my education. And then when I hit my 20s, it's just always what I wanted to do more of. So organizational development, organizational behavior, business psych, all of those things fascinate me. And I've been doing it since then, which at this point is a very long time, coming up on 40 years. Every generation has kind of a different thing that's important. There's almost a culture to each generation. So I would say one of the things that I really noticed in terms of business and people and how they show up in business is, in terms of what's important to them, people more and more want to find their own personal purpose through work. You know, we spend most of our waking hours, certainly a lot of our intelligence, all of our striving, for the most part, goes into work. So people really want to be satisfied in their lives through their work. Work is not just a means to an end, it's also the end, right? So that's one thing that I see is really different. And management structures have not always kept up with that. Leadership mindsets haven't always kept up with that. So bridging that gap is something that's important to me. And I personally specialize in entrepreneurship because that's the only thing that makes sense to me, to be perfectly honest, because then you have people who are just so much more committed to the end result without some of the older structures that they may have been married to before. Oh my gosh, 2, okay. Self-awareness. My byline is know thyself. That is one of the most important things that I think. If people are not self-aware, good luck being successful on a team. And it doesn't matter if you're a team member, if you are a team leader. If you do not know how you're made up, then how can you possibly understand or appreciate how other people are? The other one kind of is also based out of that. If we want to be able to focus in on and do just what we love to do and are best at, which at Strategic Coach we call your unique ability, we will not have the ability to engage other people's unique abilities. So if I'm going to do just what I'm really, really good at, I have to be surrounded by people who are brilliant at everything I'm not, which is a lot, right? So it takes that, again, you have to know yourself first, but then you also need that appreciation and understanding of other people's capabilities and be willing to be in teamwork with them. So Working Genius is the first teamwork profile I've ever seen. It's one of those things that actually helps people identify not only what they love to do, but as they say, it's 20% of personality profile and 80% of productivity tool, which is the best description. So it tells people where in the creative process they gravitate to, what brings them joy, where do they make their best contribution. And then what I'm going to be talking about fits really well in with that really well, because I'm going to be talking about unique ability and unique ability teamwork. So unique ability is what do you love to do? What do you do best? Where in the sandbox do you want to play? And then in order to be able to do that, to be freed up to do that, how do you create a team around yourself that is, again, brilliant in everything you're not? What are the mindsets required? How do you have to think about things? What are the communication structures? All of that. So we're going to help people figure out what are their unique abilities by looking at all their activities and then quantifying them, which is really fun. And then figure out what's the kind of dream team that they need around them. Who do they already have? Because a lot of people have way more resources at their disposal than they ever appreciated. And then how do you make that work? So I'm excited to dive into unique ability and unique ability teamwork, because that's what makes it all happen. It was really fun. As he asked me, I was very flattered. And I love this book. This book is so brilliantly written. It is such a generous book. He lays out everything you would ever need to know. And the part that I was able to contribute are some of the universal principles about having an entrepreneurial mindset. Because one of the things that we forget is there's different types of teams and different types of team members. Some of them are on the more bureaucratic/corporate side, but to really be successful with an MSP, they have to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And so in my first book, the Team Success Handbook, I outlined 12 entrepreneurial attitudes that team members need to have in order to be successful and to grow. And so that's what I outlined in the book. And as well, we talked about some of the different profiles that we're incredibly fond of that make it work as well. So that was what I was able to contribute to the whole building global teams. Well, might sound frivolous, and I don't mean it this way. It's fun. It is so cool to be able to connect with people across the planet. I got to speak with Sunny's team, hundreds and hundreds of people on a Zoom call and talking about having entrepreneurial attitude. Didn't matter if it was Philippines, India, Canada, US, you name it, we could all be on the same page. Like, how incredible to be able to tap into global talent, global mindsets, and all be on the same literal and figurative page. What an incredible gift to be able to connect with other human beings in that way. And all of us wanting to make a difference, wanting to move ahead, wanting to grow, wanting to help grow the companies that we're with. I mean, that's just a joy. So for me, being able to expand it beyond my own little, originally just Toronto and then Chicago, and then, now we're also global, so we're also in London, as well as over different places in Canada and US from a strategic coach standpoint. For me, being able to work with other entrepreneurially minded people across the planet is phenomenal. And the fact that we can tap into so much human creativity and ingenuity, it just means the world can be that much more connected and that much more of a better place. There are some differences in mindsets. There are some differences in the amount of freedom that people think they can take. Some cultures are much more needing to go through the hierarchy and ask permissions and things like that. America, obviously, the least of that. We're much more likely to ask for forgiveness than permission, just saying. So I do see some of that, but they're really cultural mindsets, not in people's individual capabilities at all. It's kind of what you're used to, what you've been raised in, what's kind of socially okay. Mm-hmm. So we look for the most entrepreneurially minded people wherever we are. And that's what our clients do as well. How big the vision is, I think, is one thing. I think one of the things I want to encourage owners, visionaries, entrepreneurs of all kinds, and team members is to think big. And find the connections, the things that we have in common, much more than the things that differentiate us. I think having a big, clear vision of what we want the future to look like galvanizes, to use a working genius word, galvanizes all of us towards the result that we want to accomplish. Getting focused on the differences, getting focused on the things that can separate us. I'm not saying don't ignore the obstacles, because they're simply the raw material for achieving our goals, as Dan Sullivan says. But really, let's focus on having a big result that inspires us, that, again, galvanizes us. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. So I think playing too small is one thing that could be important. And also recognizing that some of the forces of globalization aren't there anymore. Dan Sullivan talks about the melt cost, the increase, Sonny had a slightly different personalized version of it for him, but the increased cost of money, energy, labor, and transportation is real. So I think that just means we have to, if those are headwinds, we have to be really creative, really resourceful, really knowledgeable about what the specific issues of our clientele are, so that we can be really creative in solving them. So be smart, keep cash aside, don't be dumb, and then have a big vision. Those things are really what get everyone out of bed in the morning and get us all being productive.